It's been exactly 10 years since I bought my first MIDI keyboard. Went to the local music shop, got the cheapest one I could find, loaded up free software, and started making beats in my bedroom purely for fun. Spent those 10 years producing, mixing, mastering, eventually turning this hobby into a full-time job running my own studio. And I've made so many mistakes along the way. Some were small mixing issues, others were fundamental mindset problems that held me back for years. So here are the hardest lessons I learned, the ones I wish someone had told me on day one. First big one, you cannot fix arrangement problems in the mix. This was the most annoying thing to hear when I was starting out, but it's absolutely true. If you've got competing tracks, a bass and a kick fighting for space, two synths clashing, the problem isn't your EQ, it's your arrangement. Everyone's loading up dynamic EQs, trying to carve frequencies, using sidechain compression, but here's the truth. If your elements aren't arranged to work together from the start, no amount of mixing will save it. Listen to your favorite records. Notice how everything grooves around each other. They fit in the pocket because the arrangement was thought through. Those full-range synth presets sound amazing on their own, but you can't stack 5 of them without making compromises. Once this mindset shift clicks in, your tracks will sound more confident, they'll groove better, and honestly, they'll pretty much mix themselves. Next, check the phase of your samples, especially in the low end if you're layering kick drums or bass. Zoom in on the waveforms. If one's going up while the other's going down, they're canceling each other out. No amount of EQ or compression will fix that because the waveforms are fighting before you even start processing. I've had embarrassing mixes where I spent hours trying to make a kick and bass work, adding EQ, low-end exciters, distortion, when all I needed was to flip the polarity. One click, problem solved. If anything in my software takes more than 5 clicks, I find a better way to do it. Automate it, shortcut it, or use different software. At the start, I felt like I was wrestling my DAW just to get basic things done, clicking through menus, manually routing tracks, loading presets the long way. There's almost always a faster method if you read the manual or look it up. Your software should be doing the heavy lifting, so you can focus on being creative, not fighting with the interface. Here's a practical one that changed everything for me. Stop soloing tracks so much. It's easy to make something sound great in solo. The problem is when you bring everything back in, it doesn't fit. Now I mix tracks in context. If I'm working on the snare, I keep the rest of the drums on. If I'm mixing vocals, I keep the guitars or synths playing at a lower level. This speeds up mixing because you're not remixing the same thing 3 or 4 times to make it fit. And it reduces ear fatigue because you're not listening to isolated elements over and over. Now, the gear versus skill debate. You've heard it's not about the gear, it's about the ear. And while that tries to be positive, sometimes it's just wrong. Some issues are skill-based, sure, but there are times when you genuinely need the right tool for the job. We don't apply this to any other profession. Electricians have toolkits. Video editors have color-accurate monitors. If you're a music producer, it's okay to have good equipment that lets you accurately hear your music. When I was starting out, I had awful speakers and no acoustic treatment. No amount of skill could fix that. There were problems in my mix I literally could not hear. I'm not saying go buy expensive gear, just understand the limitations of what you have, and don't let people sitting in front of millions of dollars of equipment tell you it's all about their ears when they clearly wouldn't have all that gear if it didn't matter. Last one. Be careful with advice from forums and blogs. When you're a beginner, you don't have the experience to separate good advice from complete nonsense. I picked up so many rules that I had to unlearn later. Things like never compress more than 3 to 6 dB or always cut, never boost with EQ. The biggest red flag, anyone selling you a formula or step-by-step method to mix or produce a perfect song. That's nonsense. Anyone professional knows there's no formula. It's a creative process that changes based on what the track needs. So that's 10 years condensed into a few lessons. You're going to make mistakes. I still do. But hopefully you can learn from mine and skip a few years of frustration. Focus on arrangement first, check your phase, automate your workflow, don't worship gear, but don't ignore it either, and question any advice that sounds like a universal rule. That's what I wish someone had told me on day one.